Before I start this video, I want to give some book recommendations, because people seeing these new videos that I'm filming like this with part of my books behind me. This shelf runs from the ceiling to the floor. It's got about, I don't know, must have near 1,000 books on it, but that's probably a quarter of my collection. It's probably only fair that I start recommending books. I'm going to recommend this one today because there's two versions. There's actually an interesting Cliff Notes version of it that I didn't know about until I watched a recent review by Dave Halpin on the Occult Book Review channel. Very good channel. I suggest you get hooked up on that. The book is, of course, Carlo Ginzburg's The Night Battles. Now, this is the original copy that I bought in Hudson News in Penn Station in Manhattan in 1992, and the book really opened up a world for me. It's about the last proper shamanic cultures left in Europe, and that was a group called the Benedate, who existed in northern Italy, particularly around the hills around Verona, and also in parts of the Balkans. And the book is basically in the 16th and 17th century, the Inquisition trying to put them out of business. But during the interrogation, some very interesting insights are given into the European shamanic tradition. And this really began my journey towards my own book, The Druid Code, because finally, rather than having to cross-reference the things in Africa or Asia or North America, here was hard proof of a European shamanic tradition that we could actually overlay upon what was missing about our own European shamanic history, and then start working back towards the kinds of people who built the megaliths thousands of years before the Druids. But this was almost like a cipher or a Rosetta Stone for me personally. And the Cliff Notes, here's the Cliff Notes version. You can get that instead if you don't want to read the whole book here, and that got that very inexpensively on Book Depository. Now, this brings me to another kind of thing. Talking of shamanism, I don't care if you don't believe that I had something to do, or you think I'm being egotistic, with this UFO flap over Ireland. I absolutely did. If you see the video again on Uma Uma, you'll see how I edited it, how I put the music on it. Now, that was for a fan, but this was a kind of a chaos magic thing that happened by itself. I was very intense that day. I was extremely focused because of the inherent dangers of actually working on the roof of my house in bad weather and not wanting to fall. And a psychic state had built up where I had basically, after reviewing all the evidence, declared that that object that came into the solar system appears, until better evidence comes along, and I still feel that way, to have been intelligently controlled. Therefore, I had completely reevaluated my feeling towards alien visitations into this solar system, should we say. But I still maintain that the majority of what they call UFOs are psychic phenomena related to human consciousness. And immediately we had the lights appear off the coast of Kerry. Now, I had to deal with some very arrogant people, talking typical word salad, saying, you know, this is how you can always tell someone who's brainwashed by a cult. They take 24, they basically said this, watch your ego. Well, start of all, I'm not an egotistical person in that sense at all. I'm incredibly laid back and easygoing, and I didn't declare myself some great prophet. So that was also probably another way that they were give away that they were members of a cult, because they're obviously looking up to either themselves or someone else who has some kind of cosmic religiosity regarding aliens or something. And also the monotonal word salad out of them. You could actually see it. You could actually hear monotonal voices by the words they posted. Now, secondly, predicted like I'm some great kind of sage. I'm aware of psychic energy and how it operates and functions. Now, since the two planes, two British Airways and a Virgin flight, spotted the UFO over County Kerry, or near close to it, and had that remarkable discussion with the air traffic controllers at Shannon, what's really interesting is how serious the media has taken it. Mainly because it's two aircraft pilots and an air control tower, two people that should know about these things. They know what meteorites look like. They obviously weren't meteorites. And the media has changed towards it. I watched one report there with the man Tucker on Fox, and there was none of these quips about Elvis's back that you get from meat golems and NPCs or anal probes and all this stuff. It was quite an intelligent discussion. And even on some of the other groups where you do get those kind of people saying these things, most people are saying things like, well, maybe there's mysteries that we'll never fully understand, and it may not even be aliens, which is a huge quantum leap in people talking about this subject, because I've never really liked the idea that all of them are aliens. It's a, hey, and the same with these cults who have these kind of Christianized alien salvation or events from space. They have no faith in the human race. I have enormous faith in the human race, and I'll tell you why as this video progresses. These events are now happening all over Ireland. People are seeing lights in the sky here all the time. That's what they're seeing, lights in the sky. They're not seeing anything connected to Uma Uma, other than probably my video started a psychic firestorm. And these people are seeing what human beings have seen during times of crisis forever, is strange lights in the sky. Carl Jung, in his book on Flying Saucers, made this quite apparent, and he spoke about this subject many times. They're just lights, possibly plasma. Who could know? They could be entities. We don't know for sure, but they could be even human consciousness transferred into it. I always remember there was a very interesting film made, French animated film, Fantastic Planet, and they showed how people used to actually leave as balls of light from their bodies. They were aliens now, and go to a foreign planet that have a social life with other foreign, like, light bodies. It could be something like that, but accidentally uncontrolled without a people. Why in Ireland right now? Well, this whole country's in a state of neurosis at the moment over the whole Brexit thing. There's lots of people really, and I live near the border, who are genuinely worried that the troubles in Northern Ireland are going to start again. Their lives are going to be destroyed. Basically, Britain is acting the Theresa May government acted very strange over the whole Brexit thing. Betraying the voters, and up in Northern Ireland there's a terrible neuroses especially, but all over the whole country we're being told every 5 minutes if Brexit happens and a hard border comes in, meaning a military border, that it will kick off the IRA and the UVF and the LVF and all those paramilitary groups all over again, and we have the troubles all over again. People are worried about that. Lights are seen in the sky. It's a very, very common thing. So again, I'm not saying I'm a seer, I'm not saying I'm a great mystic, I'm just saying I'm aware of psychic energy and I know how to read it, but I also know how to project psychic energy as well. Now, I am going to give you a prediction here, but this is not based on me being a mystic. This is not based on me channeling an entity. This is how the world is going to develop in the next few years. And in the next few years, up until maybe the next 4 or 5 years, if none of these things happen, well, you can reference this video and call me a gobshite. I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't have this belief that I'm some kind of great visionary. Although I do have faith in my own belief, in my perceptions and intuition. I've always had tremendous intuition and perceptions, and I always knew from the time I was a child I wasn't going to end up living the rest of my life in a slum like Ballymun. I had specific visions, and when I say vision like visionary desires, to do all the things I've done, and they've all come true. And that's because I had almost like a psychic roadmap. This is really what we're talking about here. The other day I saw a video, I know actually it was today, by the feminist writer and general spokesman, one of the more sane feminists from the old women's lib movement, Camille Paglia. Now, it's actually pronounced Paglia because it's a silent G in Italian when it's like that. But it's Camille Paglia, and she's obviously an incredibly intelligent woman, very well spoken, and she's a very good writer. She said that the transgenderism fad is indicative of a kind of a breakdown of culture. Now, I'm not, like you've heard me say before, there's absolutely nothing wrong with transgenderism. But there is, if anything, is a fad. If people are doing things like having gender alterations because it's fashionable, or it's to deal with neuroses or psychological problems within a cultural framework, it's extremely dangerous and wrong. And she's absolutely right. It is indicative of a cultural breakdown. I would actually go one step further, and I'd say it and many other things happening right now are indicative of a reality breakdown. Or should I say a reality restoration, reset, whatever you want to call it. Imagine our collective reality tunnel, as Raw called them, of our perceptions of life and culture and the earth and the planet. Imagine that is like the exoskeleton of a scorpion, or the shell of a hermit crab, or the skin of a reptile, and it sheds. And it sheds so a new reality can come along. I believe this very, very vehemently. Now people will say, well, how come that's not recorded in the history books? For the simple reason, my friends, that the people who were left behind didn't experience it. There's very strange things going on with the timeline of European history, for example. Now, there's a belief that the Middle Ages didn't actually happen and they were invented by the Vatican. Well, of course they happened, but the Vatican invented a strange Middle Ages story. There's not even any proof, hard proof, that even Charlemagne even existed, of this great Christianization of Europe in the run-up to the Renaissance, which was the restoration of paganism, and that was another skin shedding. They have a great difficulty, historians, in finding documents to prove that the Middle Ages actually happened. They just don't exist. Now, we only have later sources to tell us they exist. They may well have existed, but it's indicative that something strange happened in the Middle Ages. We hear about things like the Black Death, and we hear about lots of other things, like European civilization went into tremendous turmoil in Europe. You had unbelievable wars that lasted for a long, like the 100 Years' War, War of the Roses. You had many, many wars all over Europe that were very barbaric, and the butchering was astounding, and also what happened to the Cathars and so on, and the beginning of the Crusades of the pagan Eastern Europe. Something is not right there. It's more than just that they invented the Middle Ages, or that they don't have the documents. I believe that was a major shift in reality. And what we got out of at the other end was, well, what did we get? We got the Renaissance, which was the renaissance of European paganism, which came back. It came back because a new kind of person had come along. Suddenly, we don't have individuals like Giotto and Leonardo da Vinci and Brunelleschi and the Medici family and so on in the Middle Ages. Do not exist. A new kind of human suddenly shows up on the parts of Europe, particularly in Germany, France, Italy, and in England. A new kind of approach. And it wasn't a fad or a fashion. They all flourished at once. All they needed was the catalyst of the pagan knowledge being brought back from the East, which had happened with the fall of the Roman Empire in the East. And it began, but those people didn't just wake up one morning and say, we're suddenly brilliant. The old ones had to be removed. That's what happened. And I believe that that's what's happening right now in society. And you shouldn't be afraid of it. You should enjoy it. I'm enjoying it tremendously because I'm outside it, looking at it. But here's what I'm going to say is going to happen. The political system is going to get even more stranger. On the surface, it will become increasingly polarized, but it will just be a facade. It will be like a married couple who are breaking up, and then they both decide to get facelifts in order to keep their marriage going, or have a baby to keep the marriage going. It's just a bandage, a psychological bandage. You can expect the political world getting stranger and stranger. More gaslighting. We had the French President Macron the other day say that nationalism is the enemy of patriotism. Now that is out and out gaslighting. He's not stupid. He's gone into a cross between psychopathic and psychosis in order to hold globalism together in the wake of Trump. Again, I don't think Trump is my hero, or I don't like conservatism. He's a necessary Luciferian attenuator needed for this moment. That's why I embrace him, and that's why he defeated Hillary Clinton. Because the people who support him, I'm not saying they're better, but they're the ones who finally said enough of mainstream politics, enough of mainstream media. And the results are self-evident. Mainstream media has become increasingly insane, and that will continue to happen. People who are hanging on to the old paradigm will be actually self-gaslight. Even things like the flat earth are connected to this. Remember, we're back in the Middle Ages again for a moment before we have a new renaissance. And I truly believe this with all my heart. In fact, it's already started for us who are aware of it right now and embracing it. You're going to have a lot of mass suicides around cults. And they're going to be things like political kind of cults, and also cults devoted to religions. You're going to have quite a fair bit of that. This is also, these will be people who are basically checking out because they can't handle a new thing. You will also have strangeness in reality. Remember, culture is going through almost a schizophrenic type thing. Now, if you come from a traditional mindset, you believe that schizophrenic is an appalling thing. In indigenous cultures, a schizophrenic is the doorway to the mystic. It's a shamanistic thing, and they're nurtured through it so they get better. And that's what I hope I'm doing with this video, and people like me who are around at this time, that we're nurturing you through this shift, this almost like schizoid state of culture and reality as we experience it. We're going to have increases in, now we're not going to have things like massive earthquakes and tidal waves like that will destroy the world. That's a Christian idea that cults have taken over, or comets from outer space, or even this idea of a cosmic alignment or a cosmic force coming to do stuff to the earth and to the humanity to either upgrade us or anything like that. That's a Christianized thing. That's just another version of salvation. This will be like the Renaissance. It will be very much based upon the individual doing this for themselves. So you can't be following me, or you can't be following leaders, or you can't be following. What you've got to do is you've got to, and again, I'm just giving how I'll be doing it, and you can do it your own way. Read the psychic weather. Be aware of the power of your own conscious mind. Take magic as a real force, because remember, magic played an enormous part in the Renaissance as well, and may have even been the force that wiped out the Middle Ages, whatever the real Middle Ages was, particularly with the growth of alchemy and things like that. The same will happen today. You'll have to do it yourself. There's no rule book. Your life is different than my life. Your life is different than your neighbor's life. It's all based on the individual. And this is another aspect of what we're seeing happening, is how the liberals and the lefties are putting everybody into identity politics, because they're doing everything not to take responsibility as an individual because they can. So that's why we're having the growth of what I call the meat golem, or what people call the NPC. They cannot take responsibility for their individual growth as individuals. So they want a collective solution. I first noticed this actually with Russell Brand and the Occupy movement. Well, the Occupy movement, first the Zeitgeist movement, then the Occupy movement, then Russell Brand. The same kind of people, like, we have a leader now to tell us what to do. Well, I'm sorry, if you're one of those people, if you don't get yourself out of that right now, you will be destroyed, because you are being phased out. You will not shed your skin, and you will rot away. Remember, we're all shedding our skins now. We're all changing. And you will notice even changes in your body, in your physiology. You will notice all kinds of things. I bet many people who've never had many dreams in their lives are having incredible dreams right now, technicolor. On a more supernatural sense, because of this distortion in reality, things like cryptozoology will be of a much bigger deal. I mean, Lovecraft really was a shaman when he was talking about the old ones being a sort of symbolism, a symbol of an alien symbolism of the destruction of the human consciousness. Lovecraft was not writing for the 1920s. Lovecraft was writing for now. And that's why there's an enormous desire and agenda, actually it's more of an agenda, by the liberal media and the left-wing media to have as many people reject his books or not read about him because they don't want him knowing that basically he was telling us about the world today. That's why if you read my book Sorcery, wonderful painting here by Miss Williams, that for the cover, that's the original by the way. If you read the beginning of that book, I mentioned the fact that Lovecraft's Cthulhu is actually human consciousness right now. And this is how you read psychic weather, you read art, you read literature, you read movies, but not in a conspiratorial way. You don't watch music videos looking for all-seeing eyes and pop stars doing this. That's all tired trite, that means nothing. What you really got to look for is clues that can help you to your salvation. So cryptozoology will be a big thing. Will be a big thing. Strange animals will suddenly appear in places that they shouldn't. New species will be found. This kind of thing. Animals, in terms of their evolutionary ways, will act very strangely. You might have, suddenly they'll discover that zebras are meat eaters and they hunt lions. These kinds of things. Things that, you know, as we explore the depths of the ocean, we'll discover that fantastic animals that we didn't even know. And this is again part of that psychic upswell. The bottom of the oceans as well as outer space reflect different parts of our conscious desires and our conscious inclinations, and unconscious desires and unconscious inclinations. I saw something, and it's changing very, very rapidly. I saw someone try to do some anti-Trump post on a Jungian group today, and the post was basically describing Trump as the shadow of America. Now, a year ago, or 2 years ago, that whole board would have lit up saying, yeah, you're right, Trump is evil, he's a monster. The reality was, it was the other way round. People were saying, oh, get over yourself. He's much better than what Hillary Clinton would have produced. Now, I was very surprised by that, very surprised. But this is what's going down. This is what's happening. Things will be changing very quickly. The important thing is to not get yourself sucked into it, either way. So if you see something that is benefiting the shedding of skin, such as Trump, such as many things, you go with it. We have to kill the old so the new can live. If you see things in your own life, relationships that aren't working, friendships that aren't working, behaviors in yourself that aren't working, you may discover that one day you're highly passive aggressive. The past doesn't matter. Rebuild yourself, relearn yourself. Maybe your whole moral outlook needs to be changed. I think it's a very important a very important step towards this is to always see people as individuals. Never as, do what the liberals say they do, but they never do. The lefties never do. See the human being around you, even if they have completely different political beliefs, even if they're racist, even if they're misogynist, even if they're an asshole. Try to see the individual in there and understand their complexities rather than dismissing them under this horrific and monstrous identity politics that the left and the liberals are completely obsessed with. At the other end of the scale, you're going to find Christian evangelicals will be trying to ramp it up even bigger, and Islam as well, in order to stop this shift, because they're almost like they're like canaries in the coal mine. Although they have no power of intuition, the religious fanatic is set off by changes in society and do everything to try and stop it, because there won't be any place for these big religions in the future. There won't be. If we concentrate on the individual and developing the individual as an autonomous conscious unit within a collective unconscious. See, this is important as well. One of the reasons they give you one of the reasons they talk about the globalization thing and the whole idea of we are all one. You get that in the New Age, you get that in the communists, and you get it because it all ultimately comes from Christianity, is because it's a mechanism to have you not respect your collective unconscious. You're elements of your psyche that operates in a world of free association, where you meet a person of a different culture, different race, different language, yet you acknowledge them on an unconscious level. Well, if you see yourself as that on a conscious level, you're less likely to see yourself, and especially everyone else, as an individual. And that's an important one. Again, you have to understand collectives are bad news. It doesn't matter what they operate in. This is why I'm very fond of the idea of paganism. I'm even very fond of the idea of Hinduism, because there's no holy book that you must adhere to. Yes, there are sacred texts like the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, but they're not like the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is a poisonous doctrine. It's the destruction of the individual. And therefore, the destruction of the individual, and then Christianity came along, and it was the destruction of the free association on the collective unconscious level, to put us in a state where everything is fully on the conscious level, where they want you to be manipulated. Another thing is, you must embrace your ego. These people who tell you about you must kill your ego, they're very, very dangerous individuals. Your ego is your survival mechanism at this point. Our egos were probably developed in the ancient past as a result of a trauma or a cataclysm to keep us alive, and we're needing it again. This time the Death Star is not from the space. The Death Star is inside us all. It's because I really do believe that all the problems in humanity are caused by a lack of individualism, coupled with a denial of the collective unconscious. The two poles of cognition are switched or been reversed. They've made us like the old Coca-Cola ad, where all those people stood on the hill going, "I'd like to teach all the multiracial." That's where multicultural comes from, by the way. A corporate ad for a big soft drink manufacturer. This idea of we are all one, brotherhood of man, and all this kind of thing. Although that's originally derived from Christianity. You will see strange things. There will be lots more kind of visual anomalies. Remember, as people have nervous breakdowns, they often have hallucinations, and that's perfectly normal, because basically they're not focused in reality anymore. When society or culture has not so much a breakdown, but a massive shift where lots of them are not going to go and some of them are going to come. And I'm not saying the ones that are coming are better than the ones that are going. I'm just saying that the ones that are surviving are just, they're ready for it now. Where the other ones, who knows? They may have all kinds of reasons why they're not there. They're not coming. And I'm not saying it's again a salvation thing. It's an individual. So even the ones who right now you would say there's no way in hell he'll ever change. He'll always be like an obnoxious Bolshevik Trotsky. You might find that they could change one little thing. A loved one gets a terminal disease. They have a life trauma somehow, and it can shake them out of that mental prison and make them move forward so they can shed their skin. So that's my predictions for the future, and they're not really predictions, they're just insightful intuitions, and from reading the psychic weather where we are right now, it's all very, very positive, and it's all ultimately very rewarding. But you don't give birth to a baby without pain.